So right now I'm watching myself go through this animation process. I can actually show you the animation that I've been working on. I call this one the perfect question. It's supposed to mirror the process of going through a code base. Yeah, actually, so this is the process of me animating it, the time-lapse replay. Going through the different frames. The idea behind this was that it would be an animation of a question mark being formed. So then I went back through and I added frames between the ones that I had made. And then went back through that and then traced the in-betweens. At first I was adding these pretty specifically placed lines. As time went on, I got a little bit looser with them. Something that's interesting about this is that it shows how much time-ish each slide took. Not necessarily accurately, because the lines that take one stroke don't necessarily seem like they take that long in the actual replay. And you can see that I got a lot less particular about the ways that I was placing those lines. See, this sequence actually is pretty interesting to me. And I think that I would want to extract that. Like specifically this part where it actually looks like a question mark forming. Right there. Yeah, the rest of it doesn't really add too much. Like, sure, these are shapes, but I don't relate to them. I was going back through and adding in between frames for the original part as well. But I don't really care about that part. Like, this doesn't mean anything towards asking a question. So it kind of mirrors a legacy code base, because going through this animation to begin with, I knew that that part didn't really feel like adding a question, but I ran out of frames. So really, I want to, yeah, the thicker lines are where I was adding the newest frames. Originally, I was filling them in. Then I just stuck with the outline for a bit. And this part is the actual formation of the question mark, and you can see that there aren't any in-between frames for that part. So if I play that, like specifically that, looks like a question mark being formed. So I recorded the process of me adding the in-between frames for the thicker part. This video is 21 minutes. Around here, you heard the shuffling of the jacket that I'm wearing. earlier, but then it stopped because I found a good position for my hands. I was just shuffling, readjusting my position there. Okay, I think I just ran into the maximum limit of 462 layers. And that's dependent on the DPI, I think. The canvas size. This is 1500 pixels by 1500 pixels, and I think 300 DPI. Might be wrong. So right now I am reducing the stabilization and motion filtering so I can kind of just quickly go through and add something that represents the general shape of whatever's going through this this animation. now I'm filling it in. I'm filling those shapes in manually, relatively manually. Also notice, I'm not lifting the pen here. So this is counted as relatively one action. Might be one action in the replay. You can see that I'm trying to be thorough with the filling of that. At this point, I knew that I could use the color drop, but I was trying to demonstrate the different approaches to process. Color drop is a lot faster. So I did that for a bit, but even color drop takes a little bit because you have to specifically hold it over a spot, and that, I wish I could do that faster. But if I batch the operations and I can go back through them, I'm not sure if I did that in another video. Oh yeah, then it crashed. I think there's a certain amount of undo space. So really the main point of this is to describe that this animation part, I ran out of room in the animation before I even got to the question mark. And the title of this commercial is going to be The Perfect Question. So really this entire thing, me watching this video, going back through it, making sense of the legacy code that I'm dealing with, doesn't get us closer to asking the perfect question. And actually, I am going to go back to the original animation once I finish this and prune it. But you can see that when we have technical debt, accidentally reduce the opacity of that brush. But you can see that when we have technical debt, sometimes we navigate it without really making meaning of why we're navigating it. And if I were to adjust it again, because this is getting tedious. So while we're navigating this code, if I were to give this to a junior and then ask them to make a change, I wouldn't necessarily know how to direct them to something meaningful, because some of these frames get us closer to actually making the question mark. A lot of them don't. Also, frame to frame, the kind of cohesion stylistically that we're seeing isn't necessarily something that would be easily picked up by someone who is new to this code base. So this is adding lore to a code base without contextualizing why that lore is necessary or where it came from. This is undocumented. Now I'm documenting it, but I don't necessarily know if anyone's going to watch this entire thing. And the documentation isn't very helpful. Videos can be cool, but this isn't a tutorial. It's not a tour. It's an explanation of something that happened and some of the reasons why that happened. With some of the artificially intelligent tools that we're going to be experiencing soon, I have a feeling that a lot of old documentation might actually become more valuable in legacy code bases, because you can say, hey, watch this video, give me a summary of the things that are relevant. You can also probably find some way to recommend the problems of a code base. I think that Microsoft's Copilot, GitHub's Copilot, I should say, is going to be pretty helpful for that. And this is kind of starting to look like a question mark. In the original animation, that was the sloppy part. I guess the first frame tweening session. That was a color drop error, that last frame, but it's not documented. So if somebody were to see that, they might think that that's something that we want the rest of the color drops to be. It definitely changed the tone of the animation. I was running out of battery. I think that I plugged in my iPad while I was watching this video. That was a sigh of tedium. So this is starting to look more like a question mark, but it's not necessarily easy to tell in the animation because the brush that I'm using is pretty thick. And I just watch the animation. I like the end with that question mark. So I kind of wish I actually got to that part with the tweening in the second round. But I also don't really mind because I don't like that I was using such a thick brush. And then I went back through the time-lapse replay to see the progress. So this is the first run where I was just getting my thoughts out. I was tracing the shapes with a thicker marker and then color dropping. And then when I wanted to get the question mark a bit more precise, I switched to a smaller brush. Then I went back through and I added in between frames. You can kind of see the shape of the animation in the time-lapse replay come out. And then I traced originally I was tracing the combination, the addition of each frame, like the in-between of each frame. Then I started to switch to only the subtraction. Is that subtraction? I think so. The difference between them. That's it. This is where I got a bit freer, a bit looser with the shading in between because I didn't really feel like spending too much time on that. And then I just kind of stopped doing that. Focus more on the outlines because it was taking too much time, and went back through and added more specific lines because I watched the time-lapse replay, and I actually like the way that this looks when the lines are coming in. These shapes started to get a lot more different than the actual, well, I can't say the actual animation because these are part of the actual animation, but they're very different than the original sketches. And they don't look like question marks at all. We're starting to come a little bit back towards that. You can see the shape again. I was adding the tweens. That's what made the, oh wait, maybe I wasn't. What was I doing there? I think I was just outlining. Here I'm adding the in-between frames. Now I'm tracing them. You can see that this goes by a lot quicker than the others. And that concludes it.